Oh, yeah, well, it's a lot of information, so it was the only way that I could kind of have, all
Well, it's
organized like
presented
this.
simply as it didn't happen, so.
Good. Yeah, and I love working with pictures and all that kind of stuff, especially with finance. But you know what, it's just a couple minutes after. Can we get started?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, you guys, thank you so much for being here. The presentation, as you can see, is power in numbers. Let's see if this works remotely. No! Aha! So I might be
Doing it manually.
I might be doing it manually. Oh, hey, that worked.
There you go.
All right, so cool. So power in numbers, basically we're going to be looking at the St. Clair Shores budgets, but mostly looking at them to how to help St. Clair Shores avoid tax increases or cuts of August 2nd, which is the ballot initiative. And you know, you all have the handouts, so you can follow along with that or write notes on it. And I do plan to speak for maybe about 30 to 40 minutes. And then the rest of it will be for questions, answers, and maybe we can even brainstorm some stuff too. Now, you know, we signed in, everybody signed in. We're going to be doing a drawing for Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he is, I took his free classes. They're usually done at the different churches around. But I took his class to try to help other people, and I didn't realize like how much it was going to help me. So now I actually lead his classes at different locations. But if you go online, daveramsey.com, his classes are free. And this membership kit, which has a workbook and all that good stuff, it's $99. So I pre-picked a number in my head, so that's the person that's going to be winning this prize. Or maybe we even like draw numbers, but anyway, so that's why I wanted you guys to sign on in. And we've got a lot to cover, so I'll ask that you, if you have any questions, if you can save that to the end. Unless it's a clarification, by all means, you're like, oh, what? Yeah, I'll answer those right away. So this quote right here, I'd like to have you start thinking about what Mark Twain says here. It's easier to fool people than to convince them that they have been fooled. Now, I mean, you can take that a couple different ways. I mean, you could be insulted or offended by that. Or I hope you take it in the way in which I intended it to be. That you start thinking about, well, if I'm being fooled, you know, I'd like to know more so that I won't be fooled again. And I gotta see if this. All right, good. Yay! So a little bit about my background. You know, my first introduction into politics was in 2000, and it was through the Natural Law Party and the Libertarian Party, and they actually had me looking at different laws and different things in different ways. So I was just really blessed to have that introduction into politics. And then in 2003, I was elected into the St. Clair Shores City Council, where I guess I upset everything because I knocked out one incumbent, got almost first place by 14 votes, you know, 14 more votes and I would have got that. And then also for Mayor Pro Tem in 2007, it was like a history-breaking moment because up until me, it had always been a unanimous vote for Mayor Pro Tem. And it was a 3-4 vote. So I guess I kind of upset things a little bit just by asking questions. But while I was on council, I also got my master's in finance from Walsh College, and I was also working full-time as a global market research analyst. So those two things together, it made me really curious, you'll see later, curious about different things, not just, here's some facts and believe it. But also my instructors at Walsh, they made learning about finance really, really, really fun. one professor, he had us look at financial statements and had them compare them to a football team. So we looked at the different teams and then like offense, defense, the different positions, and then the players. And so that's how I started learning how to look at budgets and financial sheets. And again, they did make it really fun for me. And you did all of this to find out the strengths and weaknesses, so you could work on them. And so everything that I learned in class, I applied to the city budgets. And then my oath of office, even though I'm no longer in office, my oath, I didn't see an expiration date, so I continue to serve the community, kind of like they're doing today too. And the reason I do that is because just like Dorothy in the Wizard of Oz, when she pulled back the curtain on the wizard and saw him manipulating everything, I feel like I'm Dorothy, and I got to see like everything behind the scenes, and it just really upset me. The games, not only in this city, but in all levels of government, the games that they play with people's lives and their financial livelihood, I mean, it was frightening. So that's when I also adopted the quote from Gandhi as my life mantra. Be the change that you want to see in the world. So, just like the saying, a chain is only as strong as the weakest link, I believe a city, a county, a state is only as financially strong as its weakest part. Now, you look at the Detroit bankruptcy, the Detroit Public Schools, now Flint. I mean, you've just got community after community struggling. And we're focusing all of our precious limited resources, financial resources, on our weakest links. And it's in a crazy backward way. We're rewarding mismanagement, incompetence, manipulation, and in some cases, theft. And again, that's just in my opinion. So, as I go through this presentation, looking at the budgets and numbers in a different way, I'm also hoping that you can use this information in other areas of your life, like when you're negotiating a contract at work, or watching and interpreting what's being said on the news, or even with your own household budget. So, but most importantly, when the city representatives say something, I want you to be able to ask different questions that maybe you would have asked before, and see through possibly manipulative answers that they give you. So I'll show you how motives and perspective play into government finance, and if any games are being seen or played, we can see them and question them really powerfully. And this is at all levels of government, the schools, the boards and commissions. So the topics here, I don't know if you can actually see it. Yeah, you can. Wow. Perspectives and motives, we're going to take a look at that first, and then we're going to look at knowing your numbers, then how the manipulation happens, and then we'll look at the St. Clair Shores budgets. Let me just read it from here. So, what actually is a dedicated millage? That came up on Facebook. Are the different departments actually covering the cost? Why not? What did the police and fire millage pay for? Some unconventional solutions, and also some of the next steps, and maybe we can brainstorm some stuff. And all of this is because, and I love this quote from Irwin Schiff, if you want irresponsible politicians to spend less, you must give them less to spend. And again, this is at all levels of government, federal, state, county, but it's at the local level that we can make the biggest impact on things, and we can actually see it close up and happening real time. There we go. So it starts with perspective, at least in my opinion. So, we need to take a quick look at understanding the history and the motives behind different things, whether it's a ballot initiative or, and know your own motives. Why are you doing what you're doing? knowing the other party, the true agenda that might be going on. Why is someone interested or involved in a certain project? And again, just kind of understanding it. And then I put this, what a successful presidency looks like. All presidents, all people of power, they put these stats down, and really, I wanted to give a snapshot of these numbers can be manipulated, because you could put any president, or quite a few presidents' pictures over Obama's, and you could report the same stats. So it's all about how you look at the numbers and which ones you look at, and it's no different for St. Clair Shores. So, and let's see. Now this is a really great book, The Culture of Fear, by Barry Glassner. It's a very enlightening book about perspective. It's how statistics are manipulated to influence our voting, purchases, and actions. This also got me looking at the different budgets in a different way and numbers in a different way. But I also don't like when percentages are used without actual stats. Just for simplicity, I'm going to use, 100%. And, we've heard variations of this phrase. There's been a 100% increase in crime, and we need to spend more money on it. So, well, how many more crimes is 100%? Because if you have if your crimes increase from 1 to 2, it's 100%. 100 to 200, still 100%. A million to 2 million, it's still 100%. So when people go, it's 100% increase in crime, it makes a big difference if it's 1 versus a million, So those percentages, whenever we hear that, we've got to ask the question, what are the actual numbers behind those percentages? So, and then also for perspective, so what are you measuring? That same phrase, we have a 100% increase in crime. We need to spend more money on police and fire, or police. So what are you measuring? Are you measuring murders, domestic abuse, robberies, rape, parking tickets, blight? All the crimes? What are you actually measuring? And then I don't know about you guys, but I haven't seen any crime stats in St. Clair Shores.
At our meetings, Erin, they do have the crime stats, Officer Kim and then one of the detectives, but I can get you.
Okay.
Our meeting will be coming up in a couple days, and I will get you and mail it to you.
Wonderful, thank you, Star.
What
Yeah,
meeting?
no, that would
What
be
meeting?
great.
What meeting?
It's a neighborhood watch meetings, and it's from all different communities in Macomb County, and it's amazing.
See, and that's the kind of information I would love to look at, and then take a look at it, and then, ask some different questions, because right now, I haven't seen any crime stats.
I have the one from last meeting, and I will mail it to you.
Okay, great. And you know what I'm saying, that in the newspaper, we would get that crime watch, but the crime watch, that's our stats.
No.
But if we did start getting, even if we did get stats, what crimes are being compared, and that, hopefully that shows it.
Oh, yeah.
What crimes are being compared, and how? Is it month to month, day to day, week by week? So if we take a look at this bar chart right here, pretend that these bars are quarters or years. Actually, it doesn't matter. And you want to show an increase in crime from E, which is today, it's that green bar at the end there. And how far back will you have to go to prove your point? Well, A and D, there's an increase, but it doesn't make your point strong enough. But then if you look at B or C, which one would make your point stronger, that there's a 100% increase in crime and we need to do something about it? Well, you'd probably pick C, because from C to E, that's the biggest increase. Well, they do the same thing with statistics. Whenever they want you to purchase something or, you know, to spend more taxes, they go back to wherever will make their point the strongest. So again, going to these bullet points, what are you measuring? What are you comparing? And can a process be changed? I mean, in New York City, I was reading somewhere that they studied their crime statistics, and they actually switched their schedules to combat and reduce it. Thought that was kind of interesting. And then in St. Clair Shores, I mean, we actually could pre-plan for overtime events like the parade or the 4th of July. I mean, those just happen all the time. You know, when I was a customer service manager with 6 shifts, we had to pre-plan for those, you know, high volume events, and we couldn't do it with overtime. St. Clair Shores, we can do the same thing here with straight time. Our charter says we can do it with reservists or retirees, volunteers. St. Clair Shores Police Department, they actually implemented an idea that I got from a book called Blink. And the study showed that one officer riding in a car, it made the officer and the community safer. And the reason for that was if one police officer is in the vehicle and something happens and his adrenaline's pumping and everything, by having to call him, stop and call him back up, it slows down the action, and it makes it goes in depth, but it makes the community and also the citizens safer, and the police officer safer. Instead of just jumping in and, because you've got a partner there, and you jump into the crime. But also, if we don't teach, know your numbers, if we don't teach our kids the real numbers, the government and school system sure will. The new Common Core math, which it's over there on the right, I don't understand it. I mean, it's just playing, it's just playing games with addition and subtraction to really slow our kids down. And then I did this little chart right here with the school bonds. I didn't add Lakeview in here, but Lakeshore had a $36 million school bond for renovations. South Lake had a $25 million bond for renovations. And the last time I checked, I know it's under 50 million, but our general fund budget in the city is under 50 million. And these 2 bonds alone are 61 million. And that's not including the 3rd school district. So I mean, this is just kind of, this is insanity. Yeah, I don't know if I made that clear enough, but I mean, 2 school districts needing more than the operation of the city for renovations. And I calculated it out, and it's about $5 to $6 million, depending on which school district you're in, per building. Can you imagine if you had $5 million to spend on your home for renovations?
I wouldn't need that much.
Yeah. I don't think I would. So again, I just wanted to show you, beware of the numbers. I mean, until I put it this way, did you even know about it that way? But it's just, again, it's just being aware of the numbers. So then I found an ad in the Macomb Daily, May 1st. It's the Romeo School Bond. And the very first bullet point that they're making there, it says, and I put it at the bottom here, your yes vote will not raise your current tax rate. So I had to think about that. So this bond, is it free? We don't have to pay back the investors or the bond? I just don't know, I don't understand this. And so I think to make this statement true, I think they're just adding another tax underneath, but they're not touching your current tax rate. So again, watch out for the manipulation of the wording. Oh, this one's crazy. You know, and we're just loading on so much new debt. And, you know, we talked a little bit about Dave Ramsey, and he just talks so much about the dangers of debt. It's like digging a hole, you know, adding more onto your credit card and this, that, the other thing. It's like digging a hole while you're standing in it, and you just can never get out of it. Well, in the last few years, St. Clair Shores has added so much non-critical debt. I mean, loans and borrowing from the utility fund and bonds. So not only do we have to figure out how to pay for the necessities in the regular budget, but now we've also have to figure out how to pay for the payments on the debt. And I think that's why they want this huge increase in the police and fire millage. And I'll go in later on. I'll go into that more in depth. But so I mean, imagine if you did this in your job or your household. You just took out loans for expansions and interior decoration and just loaded on the debt. I mean, quite frankly, we all know we'd be fired or arrested or we'd be living on the streets. So again, it's just really something to think about. Again, know your numbers. What's being measured and compared. And I know even though it's harder to get information, especially in St. Clair Shores, you know, and I'm reading all kinds of articles in other communities too, but in St. Clair Shores, the FOIAs, I mean, my FOIAs are being denied saying that there's not an existing document. And I'm like, wait a minute, first of all, it's freedom of information, not freedom of document, and you're the only entity I can get this information from. So where am I supposed to get it? So I'm working on some stuff there, trying to get that information, but you can use what you already have to get this information. You know, our paychecks. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you can get it from your paychecks, property tax bills, the government budgets, and again, it's getting this information so you can start looking at the numbers in a different way than government does. Just remember, they're presenting the numbers in a way to get more money from you, and I'm showing you a way that you can start keeping your money by holding them accountable, just by asking questions. You don't have to get into a big debate, just it's asking questions. And just like this, the door hanger, which is on the back table, I've been using this in different campaigns. It's just looking at our tax dollars in a different way, with our income taxes and then our property taxes. Because I don't know if you knew, but our property taxes well, it doesn't even really depend on what school district you're in. And it doesn't matter what community, because I took this idea from Troy, the city of Troy, and even them, half of their property taxes were going to education. You know, different levels of education, but it's like, wait a minute, but the schools are asking for more money, they're increasing the tuition on students, and, you know, Bernie Sanders, for example, you know, oh, we need free education. Well, wait a minute, you're going to be taking more money from me in order to pay for that free education. So again, you know, it's all about knowing your numbers. Then if we look at our paychecks, and that was the other thing on the one side, according to the census, and I don't know if it was adjusted for inflation or not, but you know, we were paying a lot less in taxes a long time ago, and we got to keep like 90% of what we're earning. And now, I mean, we're lucky if we get to keep 50%. And I did some calculations from person earning $40,000, and that's not little, it's not a lot. I mean, that's just pretty normal. And even a person that's earning $40,000. is still paying about 50% of their wages in taxes. So you only get to keep 20,000. And I can go into the calculations at another time, but it was shocking to me. But the places that we can look at it, again, paychecks, property tax, the budgets are actually here in the library. But again, it's all about just knowing the different numbers, where your money's going. And so, again, knowing your numbers, these are some charts that I did for St. Clair Shores. It's interesting that our finances are no longer in the city calendar. For the last 3 years now, they've been left out. I even asked at one of the commissions, the Communication Commission, if we could get that back in there, and they said no. They want more taxes, but it's not important for them to give us some facts. But so here's my education in action. I put all of the city departments and teams so I could look at their performance. And that's right here. So you've got the core government, and then the different departments grouped together. You've got, protect and serve team, which is code enforcement, police, courts. And then I tried to see, which one had the highest expenses. And then over here, I tried to see if they were covering their costs. You can see they're all in the red. None of the teams covered their costs.
What's the long bar, the longest one?
That one, I believe that is the foundation team, which is streets and that. I can't see it from here. But yeah, I believe it is the, and I go into that a little bit more. All right, so yes, this is the next slide. So then I narrowed it down. Yes, that long bar was the foundation team. And then I took the, it's DPW, water, sanitation, sewers, all that good stuff, and streets and water. They were the biggest ones that weren't covering their costs. But I just wanted to show you the slide just so this is how I started, like, narrowing it down, trying to dig in at where the problem is. And then I took their costs, wages, fringes, and all of their capital expenses. I put them, I think this is about a 10, 12-year time span, and just looking at the trends. And then later on I'm going to show you, when you look at it this way, it's like, wow, what did we do to make this go down so far? And, uh-oh, what happened here? Well, and there's a couple things that happened here. I'm sorry, I know you can't see it here. This is all of the different departments. And then I took a look at water. And in the water department, this big, huge trend here. This blue box is where Kurt Dumas was our DPW director, and it kind of shows that he was very inexperienced. And then later on, as we might all know, he was convicted of a felony embezzlement. So, but it's also, that spike isn't just because of him, but it's also like the water meters and some other stuff that was going on at that time.
In your study, was that from the budgets or from the comprehensive annual financial reports?
These are from the budgets. Yeah, I can, if you're interested in doing this in your own community, I can show you all of my data and how I actually put it together. Because every city, they do their budgets so differently. And St. Clair Shores, it's so convoluted how it is. So I actually entered in every single stat, and then I so that I could do these charts the way that I wanted to do them, not the way that the city did.
It makes more sense.
Yeah, well, and it shows you can clearly see something's wrong. Or in that one case where the line went down, it's like, whoa, we decreased it. Was that a good decrease or was that a bad decrease? Like what was involved in that? So again, it's just a different way of looking at the budgets. And then next, we're gonna take a look at like how the manipulation happens, and from what we've been talking about already, you have an idea, you know, you need to look at the, perspective and motives or someone's agenda. You know, we get manipulated because we don't know the numbers, or we haven't been, you know, we didn't see the big picture. Or in a lot of cases, especially, you know, Mike Smith, our city manager, is a really good talker, But then when you like think back and you're like, wait a minute, wait, you just used that word. But no, nice guy and everything, good talker, but you gotta really listen to the wording that they use. And also, maybe we don't ask questions. We're afraid to ask questions, or we don't ask the right ones. Or, you know, we don't have time. And every time we don't have time to do it. Yeah, it's like right now with the police and fire millage, and I know they're using scary tactics, but it's, they're going to be asking us to, pay, I don't know what the increase is now. I heard a figure of like $800 average, or, I mean, it was something crazy.
What I saw was it's going from 2% to 5% in millage.
Or two mills to 5 mills?
Yeah,
Yeah.
from 2 mills to 5
Which is a
mills.
huge
That's-
jump.
that's a
I
big
mean,
jump.
it could be, depending on the price of your home, I mean, that could be $200, $300, $500.
But they didn't tell you what it's going to be used for specifically.
Exactly. And
That's the
I'm gonna
questions I've
kind
asked
of,
on Facebook and you get no answers.
correct, because they don't. And I'm gonna dive into that in just a tiny bit. But it's like how the manipulation happens. I mean, a lot of this is fear and intimidation tax increases. You know, it's for police and fire, it's for the kids, or for the seniors, and, or it's to avoid bankruptcy. Oh, we can't go bankrupt, you know, we need the bailout, you know. But the really sinister one that's just started happening is now they're manipulating the law, or manipulating the spirit of the law. In the boards and commissions, or like the different authorities, DDAs and that kind of thing, I just had to stop this in our TIFA meeting. The gentleman came in and they were gonna award him a $40,000 no bid contract. And I'm like, whoa, wait, stop. And so I was able to stop that. The gentleman was really angry at me, but he did get 20 of the 40, but still.
I thought council had to award the contracts.
No, in these TIFA districts,
Yeah.
they get to do whatever they want. And no, and
Oh.
you know, except for Scotty and myself, you know, there's nobody attending these TIFA meetings. I mean, and this stuff happens, there's different groups that they can spend whatever they want, and TIFA is one of them. In other communities, it's the DDAs. Now we've got that water authority. They can just spend whatever they want without even telling us. As they set up this authority, they get to spend it. And very few people are actually attending those meetings. And we know manipulating the law, I mean, the election dates are chosen for the low turnout. But also what they did, especially when I was on council, when I've been attending those budget meetings, they do the August meeting, or the August ballot. So then if it doesn't pass, they go on to November. And if it doesn't pass in November, then they go on to the school one. And they keep on doing it until they find a scary enough tactic for us to vote on it. But then, what I just found out, they started violating our city charter. Now, you know our city charter. Oh!
Yeah, it's the same thing in St. Clair Shores as it is in Warren.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Well, so what's happening here is, you know that our U.S. Constitution is the law of the land. Well, our city charter is the local law of the land. And this is right out of our city charter. It's about bonds, and it's one sentence long. Not gonna read it, it just, basically it says, if you're going to take out debt, you have to take it to the vote of the people. And it says it very clearly here. And then I'm gonna, yeah. Let's see.
But aren't they doing that by putting it on the ballot in August? They're taking it to the vote of the people.
Well, the police and fire millage, yes.
Yes.
But I'm gonna show you how they're actually violating our city charter. With the courthouse, they took a $2 million bond out for the courthouse. And the senior center, the renovations, they took out, what was it, $1.7 million loan, a federal loan.
Isn't
Both
that
are-
part of a grant, Erin?
Well, they're both debt, but see, and they took it to the vote of the city council members, and they said that they didn't have to take it, both of these to the vote of the voters, because the court would pay the bond, not the taxpayers. That was their justification. And for the senior center, they said that community block grant
Right,
fund
right.
would be paying it. But think about this. What if the court defaults on the payment? What if those community block grant funds are no longer available? Where does the federal government and the bondholders go to get their payment? Us, the taxpayers. We are full faith and credit of the city. That falls on our shoulders to pay it.
Is that automatic, I mean, that's automatically the law, if a bond issue doesn't get paid out, that the, has
Oh,
to come
yeah.
back?
Oh, it's all in the bond and everything. But the city justified it and said, we don't need to take it to the people to vote on. We'll just take it to the 7 city council members because the full amount, again, is being paid by the court and being paid by that bond, or that CBG
So that's a
fund.
loophole, is what I would consider.
It's a loophole. And it's just, wow.
It's the
It
clarity,
is.
it's the clarity of intent.
Yeah,
That's what's the problem is, and usually becomes a little debatable and legal, because when you force the legislators to do only what they're supposed to do and not make these critical decisions of the financial burdens that we have to prove of these projects and money. That's why participation in my heart is where people don't go to the meetings, which we do all the time, and it's letter writing, complaining, challenging the charter, letting them know that we read the charter, you're in violation. But what's wrong is we don't have enough time to get it done at the meeting because you're limited to speak. So I found in Robert's Rules of Order, if you wrote the complaint and document and submit it for record, they all have to read it. It's called notification
There we
under the rules of Robert's Rules of Order. And as you learn the proceedings, you can penetrate that fortress, that they say, no, we're the boss, and I said, no, the people are the boss, and we just have to put you in charge.
Is the court
Yeah,
funded
that's
by
good.
the general fund?
And that is the muddiness of it. They are kind of separate and kind of not. They're in the general fund, but they're, yeah, it's just weird. It's just weird.
Well, can't you pin them down by asking in the budget reports, the stipulations of the paperwork? Because the paperwork has to show the transactions, if you think about how the money is.
Oh, yeah,
It's
and
put into the
an administrator, she does a really wonderful job of putting the reports together, and it's in the budget and everything. But when you're sitting there talking about, like, this bond, it just gets muddy.
But is the 40th District Court in the DDA?
I don't know if they're in the DDA, but the Tifa district.
Yeah.
No, but they didn't use that, I think they're just outside of it, but,
'Cause that would be a loophole. I mean, as far as if it was a DDA, that they can
oh gosh,
technically.
that would be another loophole that they're gonna use, stop.
I was
Yeah.
making a comparison with Warren, you know,
Yeah.
that the building is in the DDA district, so therefore the authority will float the bond and let some people know about it.
Yeah, but again, the bond holders only, invest their money because they know that the taxpayers are on the hook. No matter what we're told about it, we're on the hook. You know, if the 40th District Court did default on a payment, bondholders are gonna get it,
Right.
one way or another, from us. So, I mean, that's just the law. So anyways, we went through the first three, oh gosh. But now we're gonna take a look at the St. Clair Shores budgets. And I hope this has been informative.
It's very informative.
Okay, good. So this is a good one. I love this example. So someone said, oh, but the police and fire millage, it's a dedicated millage. So what is a dedicated millage? Chesterfield Township, they have a dedicated millage. St. Clair Shores, we do not. So St. Clair Shores, we collect the taxes, and I put St. Clair Shores on that side. And this is a sheriff's badge. I couldn't get a little shield in the clip art. But anyways,
I think it's from Israel.
yeah, I know. I know. But St. Clair Shores collects taxes for the city operating and for the millage that they title police and fire operating. And then they dump all of that money into the general fund. So Chesterfield, they actually collect taxes for their township operating and then their police and fire services, and it's separate. And they hold it in two separate accounts.
Right.
And then they budget for them separately. And it's kind of like how you would set up like a Christmas account or a college fund. They
Right.
do that. Whereas in St. Clair Shores, we take all the money and we just throw it into the checking account. They put it into police and fire services fund and their operating fund. So, so Chesterfield, I hope you can see, that's a dedicated millage. And just because St. Clair Shores wants to call it a police and fire operating millage doesn't mean the money goes to police and fire. And accounting wise, when it dumps into that checking account, they can't tell you where it's going.
But Erin, at the one council meeting that I watched, when they were going over the budgets, he budgeted as part of the budget, the anticipated voted millage. That was part of the budget, of the police and fire budget, was going to be the dedicated, not
Isn't that
dedicated.
insane? And they, in
They
St. Clair
included
Shores,
it as anticipated income for their,
yeah,
the
and
budget.
they passed, on the front page of the Sentinel, it said that they passed the budget with
Deficit.
almost $7 million deficit.
yeah.
You can't pass a budget. But again, we allow them, and they use those scare tactics of police and fire, which personally, I was going to say this at the end, but personally, I find it appalling that we use the men and women of the
I
police
agree.
and fire departments as pawns for this tax increase.
Because they're worth every cent
Yeah.
that they are
Yeah, and
legitimately
we're
paid.
using them
but,
as pawns.
You know, I have nothing against the police and fire, I have everything against the way it's handled.
How they're being used.
Yeah.
They're being used and manipulated.
Is there a rainy day fund amount?
Oh
That,
gosh.
yeah.
Like
See,
the unrestricted
and
reserve?
that drives me nuts when people say, oh, there's a rainy day fund. Well, pretend that was your retirement money. You don't use your retirement money for all these things, yeah. But there is, and they're gonna have to dip into that, and also they're gonna have to dip into,
So
other stuff.
they passed a what-if budget then, with a deficit.
Yeah.
And is it 7 million the projected deficit with the millage passing, or not?
Is it,
Well, that's a good question.
yeah, I actually don't know the answer
I would
to
have
that
to
one.
say yes,
Okay, well, what if?
because from based upon what I heard at the council meeting,
Okay,
because they included that millage as part of their income for expenses, so I would have to say yes,
so if it fails, it would be much more then.
if it doesn't pass.
If it doesn't pass, then it would be.
That's my impression.
No.
Yeah, and that's why I'm hoping that, in especially these next few slides, is looking at our budgets a little bit different way, so that we can, you know, if you have a favorite topic, you know, maybe yours is Parks and Rec, maybe dive into the budgets a little bit differently, looking at Parks and Rec to see where we can find that, because you just know they're gonna sit there and cut Parks and Rec and then force all of us to.
Well, that's
pay
like
for
the
this
money
police and
is
fire
supposed to be
millage.
separate for the skate park, it's part of Parks and Rec, but is that spelled out in the Parks and Rec budget? What account is that money actually in that was
That's what the
contributed
paperwork
so far?
Is necessary to track.
It
Once you
is.
understand how they do the budget and do the paper trail, that's what sometimes by accident I come across it, I'm not an expert in the budget, but I'm like you, I question it. And when you can question it and they have an account has to include, here's all this money, I go, okay, where did this go? Where's the paperwork to show that the money's taken out, put it in? Here
And
runs the
separated,
call.
and separated.
It's separated. So you can.
We've asked all those questions.
I know,
on
but
the-
you FOIA for it.
Oh, I'm not, yeah, well.
You find somebody that can write the FOIA and you get
I
it.
didn't get the
because-
answer to my question, so I withdrew my donation until they decide to answer
For you. But you're not getting down to the problem of resolving that. That's why I'm a resolver. I say, look, if it has to take that, we gotta just do it.
So these are department budgets, the individual budget centers.
Yeah,
Well, Warren, you guys have a line item budget.
Actually, it's not line item, but the department has, like, there's 31, I call them financial fish bowls, and the 31 are like, it's a financial fish bowls connected by habitat trails kind of thing. Where, you know, where there's
enough.
But I'm starting, and the whole entire thing is that I'm seeing the comparisons here where, you know, those are bubbles and stuff like that, where all of a sudden if they say, oh, we need this, that all of a sudden it takes away from something else, even though it's supposed to be in its locked box, it's not.
Yeah, well, and it's that,
well, that's,
and
it's
also.
that's what we don't ever know, there's no clarity on.
Well, and I don't have it in this slide presentation, but I took a look at like the Parks and Rec, and I did that same thing for the 10 or 12-year period, just to see, for Parks and Rec, all of their departments, and they never covered the cost, and we didn't see that as a problem. And it's like all of this extra stuff was covering, and we never fixed the problem because we never looked at it that way before. So, and when you go 10, 12, probably even more years, and you're not covering your costs, I mean, what happens in your own household? Either you have tons of credit card debt, or you're homeless. I mean, you just, it's not sustainable to not cover your costs. So, and I just want to point out, I do have about 10 minutes left of information. We have 10 minutes left, but I have the room until 11:30, but I have to be out, everything cleaned up by 11:30. So, if you want to stay.
Oh, this is very interesting.
And I just wanted to let you know about the time frame. All right. So as I mentioned before, in order to root out these different problems, I took Team St. Clair Shores and you know, the core city government that's over in the center, and then you've got the foundation team, Protect and Serve, recreation, core support, retiree, and insurance. Those are the sub teams around the edge. Anyway, every budget's a little bit different. I grouped them this way so I could like start narrowing down. And then I looked at the most expensive team in that pie chart there, and then that little chart at the bottom to see if they were covering their costs. Oh, and this was an interesting little thing. So this is the foundation team. It was just amazing that that was that much of the budget. I mean, it was huge. And then the protect and serve, which is courts, police, fire, and code enforcement, they were the next biggest chunk. So it's like, why aren't we looking at those two groups first? But yet we're focusing on you know, Parks and Rec. It just, we're focusing on the wrong things because we're not looking at the numbers. So then, again, I took a look at the foundation team, and I think I mentioned this before, that long red bar, that's streets, and then the other long bar is water. And so then I took a look at why they weren't covering their costs. Now, I do have to note that streets and water, these departments have all kinds of funny and weird accounting rules that they have to follow, but I decided, you know, just to look at the trends. And I mentioned it before. This is that, you know, why is that like that? Why is there this big giant increase? And as I mentioned before, you know, Kurt Dumas, he was our DPW director. He was a very good talker, nice man, always remembered my birthday, but as far as
Beware.
as far as being able to run a department, I mean, the stats kind of clearly show it. He was just out of control. So, and again, just a different way to get down to the issues. And then I wanted to show you this slide for my next 2 points, and I really simplified it. So we've been told that there's about 100 police personnel. Remember that in that millage? Because we have 77, 78 police officers, but we have 100 police personnel. And so again, notice the wording, and that was on our ballot initiative a while ago. And then we have about 50 firefighters, and the other half are other full-time city employees called general employees. And again, that's the other half of the employees. And then if you added part-time or seasonal, like the lifeguards at the pool, those kind of seasonal, the numbers will definitely be different. But again, knowing what you're measuring. So now I'm going to show you where the police and fire millage, some of the police and fire millage went. You guys ready? I don't like this. So I wanted to find out what spending went up after the millage was put in place. And this little shaded box, this is when, this little blue shaded box, this is when the millage got put into place. And this chart right here is all the St. Clair Shores departments, everything in the budget. And this black line is their supplies, capital expenditures, that kind of thing. And you can actually see it went down. Expenditures went down, but yet this red line is fringe benefits that went up. And this went up just slightly. This is wages, the gold line. So then, let's see. So then I had to take out the fringes for police and fire, because that is separate. That on our property tax bill, police and fire pension, the fringe benefits, that's a whole different separate millage. So I wanted to take it out to see if this like went down and if it was just all police and fire. So I took it out, but there was still a little increase there. I know you can't really see it, So I blew it up. I took out the capital expenditures and I blew it up. And and again, this is not police and fire personnel. I took them out because I just wanted to see what else was going on. And there was fringe benefits for the general employees. Remember, the other half of the employees. There was a, can't see it there, $660,000 increase in their fringe benefits. And then another 228,000 increase for their wages.
Strictly within the police and fire department, not the whole
No,
city.
this is the whole city,
Oh, it's the whole city.
excluding police and fire.
Oh, okay.
And this is at the time, and again, I wanted to see if there was any increases and where the increases happened. And the only increase at the time of this police and fire millage was this in the pension, a little bit of the, or fringes, and a little bit of the wages for the general employees, not for police and fire.
What's the year of that blue bar, Erin? Is that when it first
That was
when
where
it
it
was
was actually
first?
collected. Yeah, fiscal year '06.
Okay, that's the first time we ever had it.
Yeah, collected
Okay,
it.
Yeah, okay,
It got put on the ballot in
Yeah.
'05, and
Okay.
then
that's what I wanted
'06
to
is
know.
when we started collecting it.
Okay,
But again, that previous chart that I showed you, when we started collecting it, all the capital expenditures went down. But yet fringes went up. So, and again, I'm like, wait a minute. So this was the only real big thing that went up. And that's the fringe benefits for the general employees, but yet we called this thing a police and fire millage. And almost $1 million went to the general employees. I'm not saying that they don't
is there
deserve
a track
that.
record that they actually took it out of the general fund and gave it to them? Is there a track record that shows that?
How can you? And that's the point that the city wants to make. They want to say, this money, it's painted blue and red for police and fire, so you can actually see it tracked and was spent on police and fire. But you can't do that. When the money goes into the general fund, just like that Chesterfield dedicated millage, you know where the money's
Okay.
going.
Okay,
Because it's separate budget, separate fund, all that, but because ours is going into, all meshed into the general fund, we can't tell.
why are we going down there? Do we know?
Well, that's just, that's the wages, but that's another thing to look at. It's like, if you didn't have this trend, and in the St. Clair Shores budgets, like, when you're on council, you only get previous year, this year, and proposed. It's like, well, but no, this tells a real big, interesting story, doesn't it? You know, this tells a story, this tells a story. That's stuff to look at.
So the decrease in wages could be basically people that retired, that basically they didn't have to pay for wages because of attrition?
I don't know if it would be,
I was just wondering,
because if they retired, because again, I also added in this chart the retirees fund in the budget, because it was one of the line items, or the budgeted items. So it's still included somewhere here.
okay.
I actually don't,
I was just
I don't
wondering whether or not the fringe benefits are current active employees, or whether or not that includes active and retirees as well.
well, this one is for the active employees. No, I think it's all combined. What I used was all combined.
Oh, that was a bigger story.
I think that one, I'll have to double check my facts, but I think I combined it because they do have the retiree fund, and then a separate column for the fringe benefits for the current employees that are in the budget. So I think I combined both of those when I did this chart.
Okay. This
But
makes-
see,
Right,
good question.
Well, no, the 660,000 and the idea about it is that from the beginning to the end, that's like, there's the assumption or manipulation that everything is constant, that the same amount of retirees exist and the same amount of employees exist over time, which is not the case. 'Cause
No, it's not.
even though there's flux, I just wanted to clarify that as far as that $660,000 increase.
Erin, didn't they not fill quite a few positions within the last couple of years?
Well,
I thought-
and that gets muddied too, because like, for example, the police department, remember
Excluding the police department. General staffing, like in code enforcement, for example. They reduced the amount of city employees, but they contracted stuff out to Code V and so forth and so on as
And again,
consultants.
I would love to see the numbers on that, because, you know, you're being told one thing,
Yeah,
and
because we
it's just like,
reduced, supposedly reduced the city staffing, is the way I understood it.
yeah, but even if it reduced the staffing, I'd still like to look at the actual cost. Did it
Well,
reduce
right.
the cost in the department?
Exactly.
But, and I only bring up the police department because, remember they had 12 police officers retire.
Right.
And they gave them early retirement, which is kind of ludicrous because now you're paying for 12 people's retirement and now you gotta hire 12 new people.
Yeah,
So
because
now you're paying double.
because they want to maintain that staffing level that's in the millage,
Yeah,
where
but
they're
why
guaranteed.
offer them early retirement?
I
It
don't
just, that was insane, but I know it was justified somehow. Yeah, yeah, there's so many issues that we could all tackle. But again, where else did where else did the police and fire millage go? This one made me cry. This one made me cry. So, they call it police and fire millage, and we just saw that they really can't technically call it that because it went to the general employees. Big chunk of it, almost $1 million. But then I narrowed down on the police department at the time that police and fire millage was put in place. And so I found out that the police department, they had an increase of $333,000 in wages. But in that same period, this is the firefighters over here, they had a decrease of $85,000 in their wages.
But isn't that part of their negotiated contract, separate and above any millage?
Yeah, and all of this, even the general employees. But it was just, I feel bad for the firefighters because they got screwed, you know?
But that's not from the millage, it's from their
Well,
contracts.
And again, it's not from the millage. I just wanted to see at the time of the millage, what was going up, what was going down, to try to see what was being supposedly paid for by this thing, even though we can't track it like we can in Chesterfield. But I just thought it was interesting that the police had an increase in their wages while the firefighters had a decrease in their wages at that same period. But again, it's gotta look at the numbers, whether you're gonna lose money or gain money. This one, all I did was I took my property taxes for, I think this is about 15 years, and just plotted it. And Sharon, you've probably seen this a lot. I've brought this up at different council meetings and stuff. But anyways, all I did was I plotted it out. Sitting operating millage, it's been pretty consistent. I think there's like library, sewage, blah, blah, blah. But they're all pretty consistent, except for this blue line right here. That one is the pension. for the other half of the employees, the police and fire. It's separate, we pay it separately. Oh, gosh, and the scary thing is, if I was to plot this out, this was just in the, council just approved it. So now the millage for this number is actually right here. The pension for half of our employees.
Half of our employees or half of the police employees?
No, half of the employees, which are police and fire. Remember that one pie chart that I did?
Yeah,
General
yeah.
employees are about half of them.
Yeah,
Well, the other half, which are police and fire, they get a separate pension through our property taxes. We pay that separately. And this is that pension, and right now, according to what council just passed, this pension millage, just look on your property tax. Let's say you're paying $800 for city operating, you're now paying, $780 for someone else's retirement in our property taxes. If someone doesn't see anything wrong with this, because everybody keeps arguing with me, oh, but they earn it and da-da-da-da. Yeah, you should earn your pension. You worked for it, you negotiated it. But this is out of control, and what they keep forgetting is there was a lady called Linda, her name was Linda Palladino, and she actually was in the contract negotiations up until this point. And then right at this point was our new contract negotiator, and he gave away the house.
who's that?
Mike Smith. He was the main negotiator, as the human resource director and assistant city manager
Right,
and now city manager. So I think he became city manager right around here, if I was to plot it out. And now, is it any coincidence that it's, the retirement for half of the employees is almost as much as it is to operate the city? Yeah, and who plots the stuff out? I do. This way. Who would have ever seen it that way? I mean, you might have seen it on when you paid your property tax. It's like 800 and 800? What?
I never even paid attention to that.
Yeah. But again, this is all just about, just bringing issues to light. This was I gave you that handout earlier. These are just possible solutions. The most important, when we're going through the contract negotiations and everything, especially, and I tried to do this when I was on council, and they just dismissed me. When we had a contract, there were certain demands, and then there were certain concessions, and I had asked to put a dollar amount to each one of them. Are you asking for $1 million worth of stuff, and we're only giving up $10? I wanted to know what was going on, and so that's one important thing to do. In every line item in a contract, we need to know the dollar amount that they're asking for or that we're giving up. Next is to come up with our own city demands. We see this kind of stuff, it's like we've got to start pushing our councils, saying, hey guys, this is enough. Maybe we need to do something radical and say, until you get that pension under control and give us some numbers behind it, then and only then will we, I lost my train of thought, but it's like,
You can't fight City Hall, is what
Yeah.
I've learned. You can go up and to the podium, you can send emails, you can put it on Facebook, you can do everything, but you are not gonna change that mindset or those people unless you vote them out. And you can't vote them out if they run unopposed, number one, or if they are selected by the mayor without going for an interview process to get more people.
Oh, like mine?
Oh, like mine.
Yeah, well, voted out, but then you've got like the city manager's situation
That's
or any
right.
staff member situation.
Right.
Yeah, so, I mean, if we can only do
So
what
much.
what we can do, every little part helps. Anyways, and also one of the things that I was suggesting is to actually videotape it. And again, these are the unconventional solutions, like Sharon mentioned. They're probably not gonna do it, but I want you to know that
They're available.
these are available. They are totally legal. And like videotaping the negotiations. I mean, the city manager, the treasurer, and the attorney, when they meet with the union leaders, you videotape that, and then at that time, only the council members can watch it. Then, once the contract's okay,
That makes sense.
then you put it in the library for everybody to see. How much, how different would the negotiations be if we had that?
Wow, could be wild.
Well, I mean, but the idea is that the battle of the unions versus the representatives of the, taxpayers and such, and the idea behind that is that in collective bargaining, that's the idea is that they don't want to see. They don't want people to see what they're actually asking for because it might seem a little over the top. Even though in the taxpayer case, they say, how much am I going to have to spend in order for your police cars to have all the latest gizmos and gadgets? Or like new cars every 2 years or something.
See, a line item detail like that to me is valid. It's informative and it's valid, and that's what you're looking for, is specifics.
Yeah, although Mary Camp, she was on the Warren City Council, and she helped me when I was on council here. Those line items can be cumbersome too,
Well, the
when you're
idea
doing
is
the budget.
Will it cure all the catch-all, the unallocated administrative expenses, which basically are spread out amongst departments like bonds and insurance and professional services, where you don't know what professional service went from where because it's the shell game?
Yeah.
This is a little off topic of that, what you just said reminds me of, we were part of a condo association down at Hilton Head. We went to the meeting and the budget came up, and there was this bottom line item that said miscellaneous, and it was thousands and thousands of dollars.
Right.
And I raised my hand and I said, could you be a little more specific about what miscellaneous was? Oh, well, he said, it's beneath you, you wouldn't understand all the details, it's for things like stamps and things like that. I thought, you didn't
You're
want
a lot
to.
of stamps. You're buying all the forever stamps.
Oh, you should have seen the letter I sent out to all the owners of the condo association.
Wow.
That was how condescending they were. Oh, you wouldn't understand.
Right, like you've caught us and
Yeah.
we will deflect.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Oh. Well, and then this goes into what we were talking about before. It's like, what can you do? I mean, first and foremost, and I got this from Dave Ramsey, getting your house in order. Knowing what your own household dollars, where everything's going, because then you can, once you see it there, you can easily translate that into other things. And then knowing that 70% or 3 out of the 4 people that you meet on the street, I mean, they're struggling financially. And because, we've got to start with ourselves and get our house in order, and then our shores house in order. Because if you're in survival mode, it's just harder to be able to help others when you're in there. I'm not saying it's impossible, it just makes it harder to do so. So develop your plan and work with others. I'm so happy that you guys, that we're able to meet here and talk about and brainstorm different things. We still have, 15 minutes to do that, although I gotta get the chairs in the, but the city's already developed their plan, and we've got to too. Oh, I didn't mean that right now. But that's okay. All right. No, but like we were talking about, like what are the topics that we're passionate about? different people, you know, we're talking about different subjects. It's just like, keep going with that, because if we do it at the local level, it's more manageable that way. And the biggest fact that you guys are here, and I just had to put this in here.
Thank you.
It's like, can't see the haters when I got my love glasses on. Had to have that one. I
Erin, are there more than one pile? Is it one pile? They're gonna fall over if we don't.
Yeah, I don't know. We're supposed to go in
We're
different,
supposed to.
different.
maybe they're supposed to be
Got me.
stacked a little bit different.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, 'cause there
I
was
put enough of
8,
these chairs
9,
away.
10. There were 10 around this table.
Oh, okay. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8. These
But
can
yeah.
stay then.
Okay.
And it's all about, you know, I know it's tough, I know it's different, you know, we keep on, everybody in here I know is doing something to help their communities, to help the people. We just gotta keep on doing that. Keep on doing that.
Is the St. Clair Shores Administration using taxpayer dollars to promote the millage on their website?
Not yet. I asked them, and I'm just gonna wrap this up. I did ask them, if I could be part of their town hall meeting and also in the newsletter, but, they said no.
Start.
Right.
They just want the city to do it. So they haven't done it yet, which
Okay.
I'm surprised they haven't.
So basically, in getting into the 2012 police and fire, same stuff, different
Yeah,
center, whatever, as far
Erin?
as the
Can I
manipulation.
take one of these?
Yes, certainly.
Thanks.
But they use police and fire to pass out the political action literature.
Nice job, Erin.
They did that at the very beginning.
Very nice
Oh,
job.
thank you
Nice
so
job.
much. And wait a minute, so
I'm good.
I'm gonna do the drawing.
Oh, exclude me from the drawing.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Exclude-
I'm not
exclude me.
a wizard.
Oh, no, this is, Dave Ramsey, he makes learning about
Yeah.
finance really
And it's
fun.
like a Christian, it's, you see
It's,
this a lot on Christian websites and that.
Yeah,
or-
so I'm gonna do that. I had a number in mind. Actually, I should just go with that. La, 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 la. I gotta make sure I'm not looking.
A lot of people don't even know about this millage, I'm finding out. Maybe we can stand in front of the post office and just say how it's gonna affect them. You know, 5 mills and you, with this thing.
We could,
Because a lot of people do not know about this millage. I've been talking to people right and left and,
yeah, I think that's part of the city's strategy this time around.
yeah.
Is to not talk about it. Because I was just telling Joe, I mean, it's like, we were at a town hall meeting, I don't get it, there's nothing about it.
Yeah.
Which means they don't want people to go to the polls except for the people that will be for it.
Right. Well, there's only about 3 or 4%
But see-
vote anyways in St. Clair Shores. It's just pathetic.
Right, and that's the idea, is like last year in Warren, more AV voters than anybody.
See, I had a number of 5, and you're 5th.
Well,
So,
it's
coming in here,
me,
my number was gonna be 13 or 5.
You want
So you want it.
it? No way.
You wait.
I had 5 in my head.
You have financial peace.
I did.
You did have 5 in your head?
Yeah.
And I had 5 in my head too.
Congratulations.
Yay!
No, and this is the interesting thing, because we have the renewal of our millage, and when it went down, it's like, we don't want to become another Detroit, we don't want to let our firefighters.
Mike, we've got 10, I'm sorry, Joe.
No, that's okay.
There's supposed to be 10 chairs going around this table.
I'll get some.
Yeah, if we can just put this together and then we can sit there and talk.